One thing you always notice in business, and especially marketing, is that we think sometimes we have a great idea, we put a great deal of effort into it, and despite our best machinations, it doesn't work, doesn't meet our expectations. Other times, we do something really random or silly that we don't think is going to work, and then it works really well. I think people kind of sense originality, they want something genuine, they want something fun and original. And this is a case of pet snails, where this really happened to me about 10 years ago. So it started with me having the admirable goal of wanting to find work for people with disabilities for making Caribbean folk art. It was then subject to rather a bit of an unfortunate miscommunication with a Vietnamese farmer, and as far as I can tell, it then started a global movement of people keeping snails as pets. Sounds complicated, but let me explain. And it got really weird. This guy, he made this picture about 8 years ago before AI art. A great deal of effort must have gone into it. I was very impressed by it. Great detail there. But to the beginning, I, as you know, am doing consulting in artificial intelligence, and the social impact philanthropy side of that is helping people with disabilities get technology work. Now, not everybody is going to want to be a programmer, so I'd always been casting around for ideas of other types of work people could do with lower skills levels, and we came up with Sailor's Valentines. Now, my brother lives in Barbados, and this old art form from hundreds of years ago, I noticed people weren't really making it to sell to tourists, so I thought, well, how about having a workshop in Vietnam of people with disabilities making this kind of shell art? And we had quite some success actually, exporting these to the US, around the Caribbean, and even better, actually, the workshop of disabled artists who were doing this in Vietnam, they're still going strong 10 years later. You can see here lovely pictures of some of the Christmas decorations and the shop. So that was a social objective, very well met. But when we're making shell art, you obviously need loads of colourful shells, and green ones were the most difficult to find. So in my search for green shells, somehow, I can't remember exactly how, I came across this lovely guy. He's a farmer in Vietnam, and he had brilliant English. I think he'd studied divinity in the US. And we got talking loads. I always like to help a farmer, and he was a great guy to talk to. And he one day asked me, he phoned me and said, he's getting requests for live snails, not just the shells, from Western countries. And being a Westerner, maybe I could shed some cultural light on this. So the first thing I asked him was, well, are these customers from France? Because in France they also eat snails, the famous escargot dish. And he said, no, no, they want them live. So I said, well, how about on Facebook or whatever, let's start just quizzing them more about quite what they want. Have they thought it through? Is this serious? And it did seem so. At which point I really started wondering what on earth they're doing with live snails. I mean, I was worried, would these snails be abused? I mean, even sexually abused. The logistics of that kind of eluded me, but it's the kind of thing one has to be concerned about with responsibility. Would a snail even notice? Would it care? But of course, we thought we knew a lot about marketing. My colleague Paul, the CFO of Enable Code, he'd actually written some books on marketing. We were doing websites for clients and so on. So I was full of ideas for the farmer on how to help him create a market for his live snails. So I've been talking about target marketing, that out of the 8 billion people in the world, there's got to be a very specialist market for everything. And I was telling him this, and the next thing I knew, he'd set up this Facebook group called Pet Snail, which wasn't really what I had in mind, and I was about to correct him on it. But then I noticed it was gaining members really fast. And it was typically people like this. This is quite a recent post of someone putting in their lovely, very cute pet snail. This one seems to have a kind of reddish slime thing going on, which is quite distinctive, isn't it? But other people, I mean, they were putting in, Tash was putting in about an entire pet snail family. Daniel was even posting a slug, which I was thinking of objecting to online, saying he hadn't quite understood the meaning of the group, but I thought not, especially as he had cute little sluglings involved. But then there was this one post back in 2015 which really caught my attention. This was Jenna saying she'll pay whatever it takes to get this kind of snail. Now, in sales and marketing, it's the holy grail, isn't it? Where you find a high demand, high price point market that isn't being met, doesn't have competition. And I was wondering, is this a one-off? But then I started seeing other posts like Marina saying, how can she get one of these gorgeous snails? I dream about owning one. So this was serious. There was a big demand out there. And then it started going viral. This was a lady in Germany getting on TV about her pet snails. Now, of course, competition is vicious. People pay attention. So Jessica, she was then setting up another Facebook group to win over our members. So she had Sticky and Slimy group, sorry, Slimy and Sticky group, and they were holding a raffle, win a snail. Then Haju was saying, here's a very novel contest for who can build the best snail home. Then we had another well-named group called Icky Sticky Amigos doing another competition by Samantha. And sure enough, in no time, there were loads and loads of different groups, often in the tens of thousands of members now. And of course, the objective of it was to sell snails online. So here we have snails for you, giant snails, direct to your door. And if you're wondering what that website looks like, there's some quite cute Santa-themed snails on it. So be more snail. Welcome, indeed. And once you have your snail, of course, you need all the paraphernalia to go with it, such as a first aid kit for snails. I really do wonder what's in that, but it must be important. And of course, books, plenty of books on how to raise your snails. Beyond that, of course, you have merchandise. What about some snail cushion covers or some snail sculptures? And then, of course, you get snail charities. So this admirable cause of finding homes for these sweet snails so they can have happiness, love, and care. Indeed. Now, Donald here is always interesting to look at what the average members are thinking about. And he says, from Massachusetts, he looks such a nice guy. He must have been really cut up, saying that his snails had all eaten each other. Then I'm not too sure about Jing here, putting up these pictures of some kind of weird seedy snail threesome. Really not sure about this. And many people weren't sure about this guy, putting in a whole theme about snail horror. This actually put quite a few people off. But on a happier note, Alyssa. She said snails are just so beautiful and amazing. She started a group saying snails are just angels that fell from heaven. I like the way she's drawn the wings and the halo on that. It's quite nice. But as you notice, actually, a lot of the people in these groups are women. So back to my usual AI theme, I asked GPT, can you explain this mystery to me? So it was saying things like they're slow, non-aggressive in nature as pets. They have a non-threatening presence. They have freedom from societal expressions. Maybe some people think it's symbolizing a deliberate act of self-expression and autonomy. I'm really not sure. So away from the philosophy of it all, and from this German member, as it's the Christmas time of year, a snaily Christmas theme to finish things off with. So Merry Christmas, everybody.